Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Ian Tuttle of National Review is in for Jim Garrity today. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today, as usual. And Ian, we start with the good news, and it's really been Hillary Clinton's problems all week have been the good martini for conservatives. And hey, given the chaos that's going on the Republican side of the 2016 campaign, it's welcome news in a lot of ways. We've talked about her train wreck of a press conference this week. The latest good martini for conservatives as it relates to Secretary Clinton is her numbers in the new Quinnipiac poll, which basically looked at voters in Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, three critical states needed to win the presidential election. And she is losing to Marco Rubio in all three of those states. She is losing to Jeb Bush in 2 out of 3 states, only slightly ahead in Ohio. We should point out that in most of those states, it's relatively close. Both Rubio and Bush, obviously, as you might expect, have a pretty healthy lead over Mrs. Clinton in Florida. Then we get on to some other numbers. Is your opinion of Hillary Clinton favorable, unfavorable, or haven't you heard enough about her? Florida favorable, 37%. Ohio, 36%. Pennsylvania, 38%. Unfavorable, 55%, 54%, 55% across the board. And here's another number that's only gotten worse over the course of this campaign, Ian. Would you say that Hillary Clinton is honest and trustworthy or not? In Florida, 32% yes, 64% no. Ohio, 34% yes, 60% no. And Pennsylvania, 32% yes, 63% no. So, Ian, if that's the way it's looking in bellwether states, if the Republicans can pick a strong candidate here, it looks like they've got a very strong chance if Hillary Clinton actually makes it to be the Democratic nominee.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Obviously, all polls are early, et cetera, you know, sure. Take it with your proverbial grain of salt.
Right.
But these results match up to what Quinnipiac found a couple weeks ago in Iowa, Virginia, and Colorado, 3 other important swing states, that Hillary is just woefully upside down when it comes to favorability numbers and trustworthiness numbers. And what's important about that, and I wrote this at the time, but it's worth repeating, is those numbers crystallize quickly. Once someone thinks that you have a lying disposition, it's extraordinarily difficult to reverse that. I think it's still plausible that Hillary Clinton wins the nomination, but we're at a point where even if you suggest that she runs, a campaign for the next 15 months or however far away we are from the general, what could she do to convince all of those voters that she's a reliable individual, that they can trust the words that are coming out of her mouth? It's very difficult to think of anything she could do, especially since you're going to have more and more headlines about these servers, the email, the FBI, criminal investigations, etc. I don't see these numbers going up. And so you're absolutely right. As long as the Republicans don't, self-sabotage or self-destruct, if she is the nominee, this is absolutely a winnable contest.
Ian, quick follow-up. Jim was saying yesterday that Hillary Clinton, the more this email and server scandal unfolds, the more she's basically stuck with 2 options. Admit that she lied, which she will never do, or play the clueless grandmother card, which she clearly tried to do with Ed Henry the other day. But even if she does that, and the liberal base tends to go along with it, that's got to alienate some constituencies that she needs. I'm thinking millennials in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, her spokesperson on the call, I think it was yesterday afternoon, so it was post you and Jim chatting, said that she was a passive and unwitting recipient of these. Is that suddenly a better advertisement for her competence and capability as chief executive? Absolutely not. Jim is absolutely right. She has 2 bad options, and people are going to see that, I think, because the Republican candidates and certainly the Republican media are going to hammer on this as long as she's a candidate.
All right, on to the bad martini now, and it relates to the Iran nuclear deal, so of course it's in the bad martini. But this one is just another head-scratcher on top of many, many other head-scratchers. This is courtesy of the Associated Press out of Vienna, Austria. Iran will be allowed to use its own inspectors to investigate a site it has been accused of using to develop nuclear arms operating under a secret agreement with the UN agency that normally carries out such work, according to a document seen by the Associated Press. The revelation on Wednesday, newly riled Republican lawmakers in the U.S. who have been severely critical of a broader agreement to limit Iran's future nuclear program. So, Ian, we already had the deal where Iran got to collect its own soil samples from allegedly near these suspected sites and then hand that off to the UN. Now they actually get to do their own inspection. So the saving face exercise here is just getting worse and worse.
I don't know what you say about this. I mean, in other news, teachers to allow students to grade their own tests, and the IRS to allow, taxpayers to conduct their own audits. I mean, it's unconscionable. And as far as lawmakers go, hopefully, I say this extraordinarily pessimistically, knowing that this, in all likelihood, is not going to happen. But if you are a lawmaker who is backing this deal, this is what you're signing on to, because the Obama administration, you and I have chatted about this before, and I said then the Obama administration basically outsourced its responsibility on a number of these things to these side deals, to the IAEA and Iran negotiating separately. And the administration's policy is basically going to be, we trust these partners to do what's normal, routine, what they think is best in these circumstances. So if you're a lawmaker who's signing on to this deal, you're also signing on to that. You're signing on to the U.S. basically washing its hands these types of arrangements. I don't understand how you can have a good conscience doing that, because you're going to have things exactly like this. I have no idea why a Democratic lawmaker would think that the United. Well, I know exactly why a Democratic lawmaker would trust the United Nations, but the idea of any of this is really extraordinary.
Quick exit on this topic, Ian. I believe Claire McCaskill announced that she was going to support the deal this morning. I believe that makes 26 Democrats, and obviously they need 34.
Yeah.
Or even if they don't get it in the Senate, they just need more than a third in the House. I get the feeling that the more this goes on, it's like a waiting game for these Democrats, and as soon as they get to the magic 34, a bunch are going to vote for the bill to reject the deal just so they can save face. Is that kind of what's happening here, or are they just trying to see where the public opinion actually galvanizes on this before they make up their mind?
No, I think it's the former, and you saw that with Schumer. There was that great report that he was, quote, working the phones on the Iran deal, and what that meant was that he was calling Democratic lawmakers to reassure them that they didn't need to worry because he was going to vote against the deal. I mean, I think you're exactly right. This will be face-saving for a number of them, assuming that they can get above the threshold on a veto-proof vote. The thing is, the longer that this goes on, the worse it looks, the worse it becomes for the administration. So, if the administration could have had this vote, ideally they wouldn't have had a vote, but if they could have had this vote on day one, that would have been ideal. The longer this goes on, the worse they look.
All right, on to the crazy martini now. And Ian, I think any rational person would have thought we would have come across one time this year where a prominent black activist actually turned out to be white. But apparently we've got at least two, according to reports from the New York Post and Breitbart and others who have apparently discovered that Sean King, a leading voice in the Black Lives Matter movement, who's been active around Ferguson and other controversies over the past couple of years, that apparently he's got two white parents. So this is the report from Don Lemon last night on CNN, who was trying to dig for answers on what you would think would be a fairly simple question.
Sean King, he is a leading voice for the Black Lives Matter movement, facing some very tough questions today and tonight about his own race. A family member tells CNN that both King's parents are white. But when I asked him tonight if he is legally black or white, initially he did not answer, but later he referred to himself as biracial. But then when I asked him if that's what it shows on his birth certificate, I did not hear back from him. No answer on that.
Ian, are those really tough questions?
Well, they are if you've got a lot invested in the answers, which Sean King does. I haven't reported on King specifically, but I wrote a piece about DeRay McKesson, who's the other sort of diva of the Black Lives Matter movement, and they're of a piece in terms of influence. I mean, Shaun King is a name. If you're involved in these circles, you know he's a very important individual in the Black Lives Matter movement. Here's the thing. It really doesn't matter whether Shaun King is black or white or any array of colors under the sun. What matters is the fact that he's incentivized to lie about it. If Shaun King had said, hey, look, I'm a typical white guy, but I really support this cause, that would have been just fine. Just like there are all sorts of candid white people involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. That's not the issue here. The issue is, and DeRay is another example of this, that the incentives at work in the racial activist movement are so perverse. These are people who are making their names on ginning up controversy, hostility, hatred at the very worst. And so for Shaun King, I realize there's certainly an element of sort of pathology that's involved in this, but there's also the fact that he saw an opportunity and seized it. And so Shaun King is sort of, as disgusting as this whole episode is, what's more disgusting is the fact that there exists this whole culture, this whole sort of ecosystem in which people can profit from faking their race. And that's the way in which they can sort of ascend this ladder of racial justice profitability. It's just a really gross element of our culture right now.
Man, these questions used to be so much easier. I don't know what happened. But I guess you just explained it. So, Ian, thanks very much for filling in for Jim today, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thanks, Greg.
Ian Tuttle of National Review in for Jim Garrity today. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us, and please tune in again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.